Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
High-tech Glenn.
Hey, what in the world makes me high-tech?
Well, because you started us on this path of podcasting, and now we're going to take it to a new level. And I think during this segment, we're going to be live on our Instagram. Is something like that?
Something like that. We have Instagram account Sober.Coffee Podcast. Mm-hmm. We got some great followers, folks that reach out and connect with us, not just on Instagram, but also to our email, which is podcast@sober.coffee. Mm-hmm. As folks know, and they kind of laugh along with us, that we're still trying to figure all this out. But we're just hanging out at the coffee shop, a little technical coffee shop, but it's a coffee shop. We got some good background sounds, and we actually drink coffee. But just sharing our experience, strength, and hope with other people on the sober path of recovery, man. And we've certainly enjoyed, and benefited from being on that path. And we just want to share that with others,
Yeah, that's great. And a lot of times we come in with an idea what we're going to talk about. Other times we come in and we have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Sometimes it's scripted. Sometimes, man, who knows?
And the big thing that was scripted for this, we said, you know what, we really need to talk about honesty this week. And a couple titles before we knew what the content was. A couple titles were kicked around.
Yeah.
Mine was, honesty, an absolute truth. But then I thought, the word absolute.
Right, right. That's a
wasn't
tough
my
word,
medicine,
man.
But that was
that's
a tough
word. So
what do we land on?
The bullshit stops now.
The bullshit stops now. That's it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm doing well. I think I've got 10 episodes now where I have not said the F word.
Whoa.
So maybe 10. It might be 12. I don't know. But this is definitely a great title. The bullshit stops now.
Bullshit. And it really had to. It really had to stop.
And boy, there was a lot of it, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I got so good at it. I got so really good at it because it was my coping defense. It was my protector against the truth that was going on in my life. So dishonesty and denial were the lead car on my train, and it just became a habit then. And then I started lying about things that really didn't have to be lied about,
Yeah, so I think with alcoholics, what I have seen and what I have been told, right, is that, lying or lack of honesty, there's a multiplier effect. I mean, I've heard and seen and read that, alcoholics can take lying to the extreme. They just really can. And I found myself many times when I was drinking, when my lips were moving, I was lying. It just I lied when I didn't have to lie.
Right.
Because I just didn't even know, a lot of times what the truth even was. So it's crazy.
Well, and it certainly fed because it fed on itself. And so what happens with me was that the lying, then I had to lie more, and then that made me feel worse, and the remorse came in, and it was a pile on. It was just a pile on of, again, denial and dishonesty for me.
Yeah, so I kind of looked at when you brought this up, and I kind of looked. I said, okay, when I was drinking, when I'm an actively drinking, right? What did I lie about? And there were some key topics that came up. One is I lied to myself, and people are like, well, how do you lie to yourself? How do you tell your sweatshirt if it's gray? Oh, it's green. Well, it's not that simple, right? What I lied to myself about was that my life and what I was going through was normal. And it wasn't, right? Part of that was my progressive stepping down over time and my drinking getting worse over time. The consequences increasing over time. But each time I stepped down, I had a little chance to adjust, and kind of okay, this is normal. This, this wasn't as good as the last step. It wasn't as good as being up there, but hey, I'm okay here. I'm learning how to live on less money. I'm not liking myself as much today, but maybe I'm just going through, so I adjusted, right? So I was lying to myself about believing my life is normal. I also lied a lot to control or manipulate. People, places, things. I tried to manipulate everything, control everything the way I wanted it. And then lastly, I think I lied to get out of or avoid trouble or consequences from my drinking. So they're my three big ways that I lied.
Yeah. And, I think I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm saying, boy, I connect with each one of those. I lied to avoid the pain. So I always was looking for the easier, softer way. And where I disagree or came up a little bit on a different path for me, I lied to myself thinking that I was so different. I wasn't normal. I was so different. I was gifted. I was creative. I bought into these little lies that I started in my head and then built onto. And I'm not that. But that's what I thought I was, and that's what I thought I had to maintain. And that just became a challenge, a real challenge. And I guess the whole reason I want to bring it up today is, I think everybody, look, I don't think anyone's ever going to attain 100% honesty. I know I won't. I try, but, there are times where to lie is less painful to somebody else than to tell the truth. In other words, do these jeans make me look fat? Well, there's a certain answer to that question, and it's never yes, And so we've got those kind of honesty lines. But when you get right down to it,
just being honest doesn't give you a license to be an asshole.
Well, that's right.
Right.
That's right. And
so I love that.
Yeah. So for me, I'm looking at honesty. I had to get honest with myself and say, all right, Michael, what do you control? Because Michael thought he controlled everything in the world. And I've surrounded my brain with whatever supported that said I can do anything. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that people can't accomplish grand things. I think what I came to believe is that I had to be honest about what my capabilities were based on my situation and based what my purpose in life. And see, that was all void for me before. It sounds a little deepish, a little head stuff, but I just had to kind of come to terms with being comfortable in my own skin, and being outside my skin was being dishonest to myself, and then therefore I was dishonest to everybody around me. And why does it matter to me today? Because I know what dishonesty will do to a person in recovery. And that's really what I wanted to beat home today, is the importance of being honest and the role that plays in recovery.
That's great. Well, before we dig in further, why don't we switch on, Brian? Let's try that camera. Let's go live with our folks. There we go.
There we go.
We're so everybody that thinks that we're actually in a coffee shop, because we do get that a lot. We're really not.
Well, we are. We do have
we
coffees.
do drink a ton of coffees.
Yeah, we are.
Right.
Our life runs on Dunkin'
Donuts. That's great.
Right.
That's great. So just good morning to everybody. Hey, shout out to everybody. Great to connect and walk with you on the sober path. So to continue on honesty, one of the things I picked up at that is, first of all, we talk about it in our program, right? In fact, if you read how it works, we start with the word rarely, right? Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, right? And then it says the people who may find a challenge are those people who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. Right. And that kind of, we've chatted about that, to a certain degree. But honesty in the 12-step program, in sobriety, is one of the spiritual principles of the 12 steps. And it uses the word rigorous honesty. So I don't know, man, use that 100%.
Yeah, right.
That's a high bar.
It is.
And
it is indeed. Yep.
I hate that 100% bar, because life happens and,
Right.
and it's hard to hit, right?
And, going back to and how it works on page 58, 59 of the big book, only because that's probably
You're
the
a
most
page thrower,
No,
man. Look
that's
at
the
you,
most read page. Well, the
thrower.
funny thing is, I came into sobriety at 59 years of age, and they told me that the answer, how it works, is on page 59 of and I thought, hey, that's a sign, right?
Right.
But yeah, they mentioned honesty 3 times in the first paragraph. It's important. It's an important virtue.
Certainly is. So what's rigorous honesty? That's 100%, right?
That's 100%.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Right. So, I have found in sobriety that, I always looked at myself as a good person. I had good intentions until I started drinking, and then my intentions went off the rails, right? And then my whole life went off the rails. But being, I don't have a problem today with telling the truth. One of the things that I'm focused on in ratcheting up, so I get closer to that 100%, is telling the whole story, right? So I can tell you 10 lines, 10 facts, and those 10 facts are 100% true. But if I omit the 11th, and that 11th changes the other 10, am I being honest? And am I really being truthful, right, in my daily dealings? And so that's something I'm looking at now, and that's, for me, that ties into manipulation, it ties in, but I have noticed situations where I'm telling you, hey, the 10 things I told you, Mikey, are 100% true. That 11th would change the whole landscape. And so that's kind of what I'm working on right now, and it's helping me improve and bring up my whole character.
Well, and
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sure does. What I'm working on right now, the most important point I'd like to convey that I've learned is that it's a red flag to me. Honesty is kind of my gauge. It's my gauge line. And if I find myself beginning to be dishonest about little things, that to me is my old self coming back into play.
And that grows.
And that red flag, that's when I begin, because then I know I'm headed in a direction that I came from instead of the direction that I'm going. And there's no better way. And working the steps, the 10th step is to take inventory on a daily basis. Where were you right? Where were you wrong? Where did you hurt somebody? And were you honest? That's one of the inventory questions. Were you honest today? And, the 10th step doesn't necessarily need to be reserved for 10 p.m. It can happen at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., and 10 a.m. and throughout the course of the day. But again, to me, that's my bench line of how I'm doing is the honesty part. And that's why I love the title, The Bullshit Stops Now, because if the bullshit starts again, that means my drinking could start again, and that scares the...
Right. So as I look at my path of sobriety here for a number of years, I have really noticed and I'm very aware that when I started eliminating my lies, my behavior started to change. And I also knew that if I was going to not tell lies anymore, then I had to behave rightly. So I wouldn't have to cover up with lies, And yeah, life becomes much easier, But if I go back and tell that one lie, if I don't do, what's in step 10 on page 86, upon retiring, if I don't look at my day and say, hey, man, was I honest? Was I truthful? If I don't correct it or correct it in real time, if I don't correct that, that's a seed. For me, that's a weight that starts going on my shoulders, and I carry that because I'm super aware that I'm lying.
See, we're seeing it the same way.
Yep.
It's a bench line. It's a bench.
Super aware.
Yep. Awesome.
I know, man. Bullshit stops now. Makes it real, right?
Yeah. I had a guy. He's you know him. He frequents the rooms in the meetings, and that was the first line out of his sponsor's mouth. He said, "You want to get sober?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "All right. Well, the bullshit stops now."
That's awesome, man.
That's it. So,
well,
let's keep it rolling, my friend.
All right, brother.
All right. Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks for jumping in the coffee shop, man.
All right, man. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@sober.coffee. If you need immediate help, The AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.